Senator Miramont, would you like to lead that?
Hello, I'm Senator Dave Miramont, representing Senate District 12, which is Knox County with the county seat of Rockland. And except for the town of Washington, I help those folks as much as I can.
How about Representative McCrate?
Hi, everybody. This is Jay McCrate. I represent Harpswell, West Bath, and Northeast Brunswick in the House.
Representative Hepler?
Nice to see everybody. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Allison Hepler. I represent House District 53, which is Rouseck, Georgetown, Phippsburg, Woolwich, where I live, Dresden, and part of Richmond.
Representative Alley?
Yes, I'm Representative Alley from down Jonesport, Beals area, and I have 12 communities to watch out for down here. Millbridge, Cherryfield, Jonesport, Beals, Addison, Columbia, Columbia Falls, Centerville, Marshfield, Jonesboro, and Whitneyville. And I'm District 138, and it's good to see you today.
Thank you. Good to see you too. Senator Maxman.
Hi there, I'm Chloe Maxman. I represent Senate District 13, which is all of Lincoln County except for Dresden, plus Washington and Windsor.
And I see somebody who's pretending to be Representative McCrate, but I don't think he is. So I'm hoping he's going to tell us his real name.
Hi, I'm Representative Sean Hutchins. I represent District 131, and I don't know just why I have McCrate's name on there, but I'm proud to do so because she's such a nice lady. My 7 towns are Stockton Springs, Prospect, Verona Island, Orland, Otis, Dedham, and Penobscot. And I traveled through 4 of them this morning already.
Wonderful. If I were mistaken for Representative McCrate, I would take it as a compliment as well.
Oh, gosh, I'm going to have to stay. Sherm, I shared my link. That's why you're me too. So if you want to change your name. Thank you.
It looks like there's another representative who is joining us. So I'm going to give her a minute. Representative Crafts, are you there?
I am. Good afternoon. I'm Lydia Crafts of House District 90, Newcastle, Bristol, Bremen, Monhegan and Louds Islands, and parts of South Bristol and Noblesboro.
Wonderful. Are there any other members of Marine Resources that are joining us that I have overlooked? I apologize if I have. If you could just raise your hand, I would really want to make sure you get introduced.
About the commissioner.
I'll get to the commissioner. Can't overlook the commissioner. All right, so we have the bill sponsor here to present his part of the bill. Commissioner Kelleher, welcome. And I think what we'll do is go through whatever testimony you have, then we'll take questions from the committee, and then we'll see if there are any members of the public who are here to testify. How's that sound?
That sounds fantastic, Senator. I'll be starting with the Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative.
Great.
Okay.
Just 1 second. Any questions from any committee members or anyone before we begin? Okay. Commissioner Kelleher, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much. Senator Breen, Representative Peirce, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Appropriations and Financial Affairs, and Senator Miramont and Representative McCrate and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Marine Resources. My name is Patrick Kelleher. I'm the Commissioner at the Department of Marine Resources, and I'm here today to present testimony on behalf of the Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative in support of the items in Governor Mills' FY 22-23 biennial budget, which is LD 221. Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative, or MLMC, was founded in 2013 and is funded by Maine lobster harvesters, dealers, and processors to grow demand both for whole and live lobsters in a variety of value-added products. The MLMC supports that objective by promoting the core values of the Maine lobster industry, which are sustainability and the traceability that is deeply rooted in this tradition. Maine Lobster achieved the Marine Stewardship Council certification back in 2013, allowing the Maine Lobster to certify its long-standing sustainable practices. The only initiative in this budget program is on page A393. This initiative provides funding to align the allocations with projected available resources. Funding for this lobster promotional fund is from the annual surcharges assessed on licenses issued by the Department of Marine Resources. This initiative provides 2.6 million in FY22 and just over 2.6 million in FY23 of other special revenue. This concludes the testimony of the Maine Lobster Marketing Collaborative. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner, I think we'll just cruise right into your next section.
Keep Greg going. I'll spare everybody for time on my reintroduction of myself. I'll be moving on to the Department of Marine Resources biannual budget. DMR is established to conserve and develop marine and estuarine resources, conduct and sponsor scientific research, promote and develop the Maine coastal fishing industries, advise and cooperate with local, state, and federal officials concerning activities in coastal waters, and to implement, administer, and enforce the laws and regulations necessary for those purposes. Just as background, there are more than 70 marine, estuarine, and diadromous species that are harvested commercially, caught recreationally, or raised by aquaculture. In 2019, the lobster represented the highest value fishery, followed by elvers, clams, oysters, worms, urchins, menhaden, Atlantic herring, tuna, and scallops. In 2019, the landed value of both wild caught and aquaculture industries exceeded $673 million. If you used a conservative economic multiplier, the value of our fisheries are worth well over 1.8 billion, probably over 2 billion actually. To put the importance of Maine's fishing industry into a broader perspective, Maine's commercial fishermen made approximately 410,000 commercial fishing trips in 2019, which is twice as many commercial trips as the next highest state, which is actually Virginia on the East Coast. Maine represents 30% of all commercial fishing trips on the entire East Coast. There are many bright spots to celebrate regarding our marine fisheries, but there are also many concerns that we need to start to address. Gulf of Maine is the second fastest warming body of water on the planet. And this challenging ocean environment is one of the biggest challenges we face with every fishery we manage. My goal is to focus on priority research needs that will allow for a proactive response to changing resources health, rather than to simply maintain an agency that only monitors stock increases or declines. This budget is part of a multifaceted approach to help the department better understand and address the management challenges that are needed now and in the future. DMR is proposing an initiative comprised of a net increase of 1.3 plus million in general fund and a net increase of 820,000 in federal and a net decrease of just over 100,000 in other special revenue. This budget addresses some of the agency's highest priority needs. I'm just going to quickly summarize these 5 categories. The first is aquaculture, and I'll get into the details of that within the main body of the presentation. The next is the recreation of the Bureau of Sea-Run Fisheries and Habitat. The third is the continued financial order positions, or 5 key positions within the agency, 4 key positions within the agency, I'm sorry. The fourth area is the central service rate increases from OIT, Natural Resource Service Center, and the Attorney General's office, and then the department reorganizations. These 5 areas are going to be repeated throughout the program with additional details. And I will begin with the Bureau of Marine Science, which is 0027. The first budgeted program presented in the committee documents is labeled the Bureau of Marine Science, and that is on page A395. The baseline budget presented shows the budget program is comprised of general fund, federal, and other special revenues. The Bureau of Marine Science engages in scientific research, monitoring, and assessments, manage and restore the marine and estuarine resources, coastal habitats within the rivers, and collect commercial landings and recreational data, and participates in the development of management plans for state and interstate and federal fisheries. The Bureau of Marine Science operates the Maine State Aquarium an educational program to educate marine school children and the public about marine resources. The source of other special revenues are dedicated fees assessed on commercial fishing licenses, the sale of lobster license plates, gas tax, aquarium entries fees, the Living Lighthouse Program, and donations by private contributions and non-federal grant awards. The first individual initiative in this budget program is on page A395. The first initiative reallocates the cost of one Marine Resource Specialist 3 position from 70% all others and 30% federal expenditures to 56% other special revenues and 44% federal expenditure funds, and adjusts the related all other costs within the program. This transfer allows us to align the cost of the position to better reflect the work being performed. The next 4 initiatives are on page A396. The initiative reallocates the cost of positions within the same program. The first initiative reallocates the cost of one Marine Resource Specialist 2 position from 100% other special revenue to 65% federal and 35% other special revenues, and adjust the related all other costs. Again, this will realign the cost of the position to better reflect the work performed. The next allocates one Resource Specialist 2 position from 75% other special revenue to 25% general fund to 50% other special revenue and 25% general fund, and adjusts the related all other costs. The next initiative reallocates the Marine Resource Technician position from 50% federal expenditure and 50% other special revenue to 100% federal revenues, and adjusts the related all other costs. The fourth initiative reallocates a Marine Resource Scientist 4 position from 100% general fund to 42% general fund and 58% other special revenue funds, and reallocates one Marine Resource Scientist 2 position from 100% other special revenue to 72% general fund and 28% other special revenue funds, and adjusts all of the costs. This transfer aligns the cost of the position to better reflect the work being performed. Next initiative is on page A397. This initiative provides funding for the approved reclassification of one Marine Resource Resource Specialist 2 position to a Marine Resource Scientist 1. This is a management initiated reorg, which was approved by the Bureau of Human Resources. The next initiative is also on page A397. And it's an initiative that continues one Marine Resource Scientist 1 position and provides funding for related all other costs. This position serves as the lead coordinator for projects totaling over $1 million in grant funds to identify, document, and test experimental lobster fishing gear to reduce the risk of entanglements of North Atlantic right whales. This position is fully federally funded. The next initiative is also on page A397. The initiative reduces general fund appropriations by $30,000 in FY22 and $30,000 in FY23 and all other for the reduction in the department's Bangor office rent, as the agency recently relinquished this office space for cost savings. The next initiative is also on page A397. The initiative provides funding for the approved reclassification of one Marine Resource Technician position to a Marine Resource Specialist 2 position. This is an employee-initiated reclass that was approved by the Bureau of Human Resources. The initiative is on page 398, and it's an initiative that transfers 19 positions related all other from the Bureau of Marine Science program to the Bureau of Sea Run Fisheries and Habitat program. The department is proposing to reestablish the Sea Run Fisheries and Habitat Bureau. This group is currently a division within the Bureau of Marine Science. Sea Run Fisheries management, restoration, and monitoring requires biological, ecological, engineering, policy, and legal expertise that warrants a higher level capacity and management, and managers within the division have taken on greater responsibilities and a policy role, including providing advice and support not only to the governor's office, but to my office, and participates in interstate, regional, and international bodies. The Sea Run Fisheries Group provides high priority management and scientific expertise that overlaps with and is often very distinct from marine recreational and commercial fisheries monitoring that is the focus of the Bureau of Marine Science. This initiative can also be found on page A407. The next initiative is also on page A398. This initiative provides funding for the approved reclassification of 4 Marine Resource Scientist 2 positions to Marine Resource Science 3 positions, 2 Marine Resource Specialist 2 positions to a Marine Resource Scientist 1 position, 1 Marine Resource Scientist 3 position to a Marine Resource Scientist 4 position, and 1 Marine Resource Scientist 1 position to a Marine Resource Scientist 2 position, and 2 Conservation Aid positions to Marine Resource Specialist 2 positions. This initiative can also be found on page A403. These are employee initiated reorganizations that have all been approved by the Bureau of Human Resources. The next initiative is also on page A398. This is an initiative that provides funding for the approved reclassification of 1 Marine Resource Scientist 3 position to a Marine Resource Scientist 4, 3 Marine Resource Scientist 1 positions to a Marine Resource Scientist 2 position, and 1 Conservation Aid position to a Marine Resource Specialist 1 position. These are employee-initiated reorganizations that, again, were all approved by the Bureau of Human Resources. The next initiative is on page A399. This initiative provides funding for the approved reclassification of 1 Marine Resource Specialist 1 position to a Marine Resource Specialist 2, 1 Marine Resource Specialist 2 to a Marine Resource Scientist 1, 1 Inventory and Property Specialist position to a Management Analyst 2 position, 1 Office Associate 2 position to an Accounting Associate 2 position, and 1 Accounting 2 position to a Management Analyst 1 position. This initiative can also be found on page A400 and A404. These are all employee-initiated reorganizations approved by the Bureau of Human Resources. The next initiative is also on page A399. This initiative transfers and reallocates the cost of 1 Marine Resource Scientist 2 position from 75% federal expenditure funds and 25% general fund in the Bureau of Marine Science to 100% general fund in the Bureau of Policy and Management program. This transfer will align the cost of the position to better reflect the work being performed. This initiative can also be found on page A401. I'm going to move on now to the Bureau of Policy and Management. This program represented in the committee document is labeled Bureau of Policy and Management, beginning on page A400. The baseline budget presented shows the budget program is comprised of general fund, federal and other special revenues. The Bureau of Policy and Management performs the administrative functions of the department and advises government agencies with regard to the development of activities in coastal waters. The source of other special revenue and dedicated fees assessed on commercial fishing licenses, gas tax, private contributions, and non-federal grant awards. The first initiative is in this budget program is on page A400. This initiative provides funding for the increased cost in central services. These costs include the Department of Administrative and Financial Services, Natural Resource Service Center, and Maine IT, as well as the Maine Attorney General's Office. The next initiative is also on page A400. The initiative provides funding for the approved reclassification of 1 Public Service Coordinator 2 position to a Public Service Manager 2 position. This is a management-initiated reorganization that was approved by the Bureau of Human Resources. The next initiative is also on page A400. The initiative provides funding for the approved reclassification of 1 Marine Resource Specialist 1 position to a Marine Resource Specialist 2 position, and 1 Marine Resource Specialist 2 position to a Marine Resource Scientist 1 position, 1 Inventory and Property Specialist position to a Management Analyst 2 position, and an Office 2 position to an Accounting Associate 2 position, and 1 Accounting Associate 2 positions to the Management Analyst 1 position. The initiative was previously discussed on page A399 and is also on page A404. The next initiative is on page A401. The initiative transfers 1 Resource Management Coordinator position from 100% federal expenditures to 100% general fund within the same program. The aquaculture program supports and regulates a growing industry of farming marine species on land and within our coastal waters of Maine. Aquaculture is an important contributor to Maine's marine resource economy, contributing over 88 million in direct revenue in 2019. There is a significant growth opportunity in this sector and an increased demand for new leases. DMR has invested heavily in this program, but the department can no longer continue to support it at that level. The next initiative is also on page A401. This initiative transfers and reallocates the cost of a Marine Resource Scientist 2 position from 75% federal expenditure funds and 25% general fund in the Bureau of Marine Science to 100% general fund in the Bureau of Policy and Management program. The transfer will align the cost of the positions to better reflect the work being performed. The next initiative is also on page A401. This initiative provides funding for the approved reorganization of one Marine Resource Scientist 2 position to a Marine Resource Scientist 3 position. This is a management-initiated reorganization approved by the Bureau of Human Resources. Next initiative, also on page A401, this initiative transfers one Marine Resource Scientist 1 position with a Marine Resource Scientist 3 position and one Resource Management Coordinator position from 100% other special revenue funds to a 100% general fund within the same program. These positions are in the aquaculture program, and as mentioned previously, DMR, while we've invested heavily, cannot continue to support the additional, the continued cost. The next initiative is also on page A401. The initiative establishes one resource management coordinator and one part-time paralegal position to support the aquaculture program and provide funding for related all other. These positions would help address the need for additional capacity in the aquaculture program. As I've noted, there's significant growth opportunities here, and these new positions would help meet the growing sector's need and support the economic opportunities that aquaculture represents for our marine economy. And now moving on to the Bureau of Public Health. The next budget program represented in the committee's document is labeled the Bureau of Public Health Z154 and is on page A403. The baseline budget present shows the budget program is comprised of general fund, federal, and other special revenue. The program is responsible for the management of bivalve shellfish resources in order to protect public health in accordance with the National Shellfish Sanitation Program Model Ordinance. The Bureau engages in 4 primary functions, which are growing area classifications, marine biotoxin monitoring, dealer inspection, and municipal management. The safety of shellfish growing areas is monitored and maintained through routine water testing and shoreline survey work. The marine biotoxin monitoring program ensures that shellfish harvested in areas that are closed when harmful are not harvested in areas that are closed when harmful to algae blooms and occur, affecting the safety of the shellfish. The dealer inspection program certifies and inspects every shellfish dealer in the state of Maine to ensure that they are complying with the model ordinance guidelines to protect public health. And the municipal management program works with towns to develop and maintain shellfish ordinances that control and enhance local shellfish resources. The source of other special revenue are from the fees on shellfish licenses and wholesale seafood licenses. The first initiative in the budget program is on page A403. The initiative provides funding for the approved reclassification of 4 Marine Resource Scientist 2 positions to Marine Resource Scientist 3 positions, 2 Marine Resource Specialist 2 positions to Marine Resource Scientist 1 positions, and 1 Marine Resource Scientist 3 position to a Marine Resource Scientist 4 position. 1 Marine Resource Scientist 1 position to a Marine Resource Scientist 2 position, and 2 Conservation Aid positions to Marine Resource Specialist 2 positions, as previously discussed on page A398. The next initiative is also on page A403. This initiative provides funding for the approved reclassification of 1 Marine Resource Scientist 3 position to a Marine Resource Scientist 4. 3 Marine Resource Scientist 1 positions to Marine Resource Scientist 2 positions, and 1 Conservation Aid position to a Marine Resource Specialist 1 position, as previously discussed on page A398. And the next initiative is on page A404. The initiative provides funding for the approved reclass of 1 Marine Resource Specialist 1 position to a Marine Resource Specialist 2 position, and 1 Marine Resource Specialist 2 positions to a Marine Resource Scientist position. one inventory of property specialist position to a management analyst 2 position, and an office associate position to an accounting associate 2 position, and one accounting 2 positions to a management analyst 1 position, as previously discussed on page A399 and A400. And moving on to the Bureau of Marine Patrol, the next budget program presents in the committee document as labeled Bureau of Marine Patrol 0029, beginning on page A405. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is comprised of general fund, federal, and other special revenue. The Bureau of Marine Patrol's primary responsibility is enforcing the state's marine, commercial, aquaculture, and recreational fishing laws and regulations. The Bureau provides public safety and law enforcement services to the mainland and coastal island residents, including search and rescue and emergency maritime transport, as well as partnering with the Maine Emergency Management Agency on homeland security and emergency preparedness. The Bureau also enforces federal mandates, enforces recreational boating laws, and provides education, safety information, and training. The Bureau works with the Department of Environmental Protection also to provide personnel and equipment for hazardous material spills, and the sources of other special revenues are dedicated fees assessed on commercial fishing licenses, lobster trap tags, and a percentage of boat registration fees. The first initiative in this budget program is on page A405, and the initiative continues one public service manager, 1 position, and provides funding for related all other costs. The Bureau of Marine Patrol Special Service Division is supervised by a commissioned officer with the rank of captain. The captain supervises 2 marine mechanics, an airplane pilot, and all specialty teams, including the firearm team, underwater recovery team, whale disentanglement, honor guard, hovercraft, critical incident, stress management, and maritime security. In addition to these critical functions, the captain manages and maintains repair and replacement for a multi-million-dollar fleet of vehicles and watercraft, including an aircraft. And lastly is the Bureau of Sea Run Fisheries and Habitat, which has been proposed. The next will be presented in your committee documents and labeled Bureau of Sea Run Fisheries and Habitat Z295, which is on page A407. The baseline budget shows this is a new budget program. This group is currently the division within the Bureau of Marine Science, Sea Run Fisheries Management, Restoration, and Monitoring. It requires biological, ecological, and engineering policies. And I've gone over the detail, and so I will skip the additional detail on that. But this is strictly a shift from a division to a bureau and reflects the high level of importance that the work that they are doing. And the first initiative in the budget program on page 407, this initiative continues one marine resource scientist 2 position and provides funding for related all other. This position serves as a coordinator for the Salmon for Maine's Rivers program and is funded by over $1 million in grant funding. The program provides significant benefits to the state by leveraging unique partnerships to restore Atlantic salmon and monitor other species of cultural and economic value in the state. The position is funded through a grant from the National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Additional funds are also provided through a cooperative agreement that DMR has with NOAA to address protected resources. The next initiative is also on page A407. The initiative continues one biological 2 position and provides funding for related all other. This position serves as the lead coordinator for the department's Bay of Fundy Connectivity Project, a $30 million project that will provide increased fisheries resources and significant construction jobs to Washington County. This position is also federally funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Resource Conservation Service and leverages significant additional funding for the enhancement of state resources. The next initiative is also on page A407, and the initiative transfers the 19 positions that were referred to earlier and related all other from the Bureau of Marine Science to the program of the Bureau of Sea Run Fisheries and Habitat. And lastly is the language part, JJJ. This part establishes the Bureau of Sea Run Fisheries and Habitat program within the Department of Marine Resources. And Senator, this concludes my testimony on the Department of Marine Resources, and I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone on the committee might have.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Kelleher. That was a lot. Do you want to take a break or get something to drink?
I've got a glass of water right here. Thank you very
All
much.
right. I think I will start out by asking for an organizational chart because you're making some changes, creating
Yep.
that new bureau. So if, for the work session, you can provide that to us, that would be great.
Absolutely.
And then I see other folks are here. Any questions for Commissioner Kelleher? Wow. Quiet crowd.
I knew if I went on long enough, I just kind of, everybody would forget what they thought they were going to ask.
You've got a lot going on over there.
There's always a lot going on.
Any questions for the commissioner? Not seeing any, but some might come up later. We know where to find you.
I know you all know where to find me. If there's anything addition needed for the work session, please don't hesitate to shout.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you, Senator.
We do have a couple members of the public who are here to offer some testimony. I'm just going to say their names so they know that they're coming up soon. It's Brianna Warner, Sebastian Bell. I think that's it, actually. So I'm going to admit Ms. Warner, and she can come over here and give us a little shout out when you get here so we can find your square. That would be great.
Hi, everyone.
There she is. Welcome.
Thank you for letting me speak today. And it was good to hear you, Pat, outline all of that. I'm here to testify on behalf of the appropriations that the commissioner proposed for aquaculture specifically. As you all know, our coast is very dependent on the lobster industry. And that industry is becoming increasingly volatile, both because of climate change, but also because of external forces and regulation, and trade wars and a lot of other different things. So the prosperity of the aquaculture sector is imperative in order for us to continue to have a lively and thriving coast and thriving working waterfront infrastructure. My name is Bree Warner, and I'm the CEO of Atlantic Sea Farms. And what we do is we're a kelp company that is the first of its kind in the country that works with fishermen all along the coast to grow kelp in their off season as a supplemental income source. And in 2 years, we've been able to add 24 partner farmers, which is 16 farms in the state of Maine, all of whom are fishermen who are now making a supplemental income source in their off season with the same equipment that they use for lobstering, all with 4-acre, very small leases. And our partner farmers range from Eastport to Portland. And what this has allowed them to do is go into a pretty volatile year in lobster with a lot of extra money in their pockets that helps sort of absorb the shock of that volatility, both for them and their families, but also the communities in which they live, as we use working waterfront infrastructure during bridge seasons when it's otherwise not being used, and provide income to those folks as well. So what I would like to say is that we are on a rapid growth trajectory, getting this kelp across the globe. Maine is currently the leader in kelp because of the work we have done with fishermen. Sea Grant estimates there'll be 1 million pounds of kelp, of seaweed grown, line-grown seaweed in the entire United States this year. And this year, 890,000 of it will be grown by our partner farmers in Maine. So we are the leaders, and lobstermen are leading this charge on seaweed in the United States. So if we cannot get more leases, if these guys and gals cannot get more leases, there will be a problem both with our growth as a company, but also the ability for fishermen to diversify their income stream in the off season. Right now, the department is dealing with such a backlog that it will take between 2 and 3 years from what they estimate to get through the current lease applications that are in. And what that's going to, in essence, do is going to overtake our competitive advantage, but also a lot of different people's competitive advantage as Maine becomes sort of the center for sustainable small scale aquaculture. So I would encourage you, as the aquaculture advisory committee member, but also a member of the Maine Aquaculture Association, I would encourage you to support Pat's recommendation. The commissioner has put a lot of thought into this, and we've worked with the staff quite a bit. And we feel like these extra positions will help shorten that backlog and make sure that Maine continues to be competitive in the aquaculture industry. And certainly for my purposes, that I can continue to get fishermen the ability to diversify their incomes in the face of some really volatile times.
Thank you, Ms. Warner. And would you mind just sharing where you live? That's usually like part of what we do.
Yep, I live in Cumberland. Our business is in Saco, and the majority of our partner farms, about half of the 850,000 pounds will come from the Casco Bay. And most of the rest of it will come around the St. George Peninsula, around Spruce Head, Tennant's Harbor, and then also a few farms up near Eastport and Stockton Springs.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Warner? It looks like Representative Corey has one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Being an adventurous, are people eating this?
Yeah, so we're turning it into several value-added products that are distributed to national grocery stores across the country and also restaurants and food service establishments. So we turn it into products that are really easy to eat and you don't have to cook with. So we always talk about is every time somebody gets a bite of that kelp, we can get more farms in the water and more impact back to our coast for fishermen to diversify. So that's our whole basis, is make food that's really delicious so we can grow and get more folks in the water.
Where can we get it locally?
Everywhere, pretty much everywhere in all the grocery stores in Maine, but also a lot of the restaurants in Portland and Bangor.
Okay, thank you.
I got to go on a kelp farm tour a couple summers ago. It was really fun. Representative Hymanson.
Yeah, so I was enticed by your online offers, and so I ordered mine. I have it in the freezer. I have multiple products of yours, so thank you for that. So my question is, how did you do with that online offering, besides me?
Yeah, we don't do much online because it's so expensive to ship. So that's mostly for folks in New England. But we launched out to California in October and November of last year. And so most of our website traffic is California up through the Pacific Northwest, then New York down. So our online is mostly just for a home field advantage to make sure that people in New England can get it. But we're mostly in grocery stores out that way, which is in each one of our jars, you turn it over and you see, or our boxes, you see a picture of a fisherman and their story and where they're from. So it's really talking about Maine and aquaculture, and the diversification story is really key to everything that we're building.
Totally impressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Warner? Thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
We have next Sebastian Bell and then William Kelleher. So I'm going to let Mr. Bell in as a panelist and ask him to say hello when he gets here.
Good afternoon. And
good afternoon. Welcome.
Thank you for making time to listen to me, and great to follow Brianna. She's a hard act to follow, I can tell you. She sits on my board and she keeps me on the straight and narrow. My name is Sebastian Bell. I'm the executive director of the Maine Aquaculture Association, and Senator Breen, Senator Marymount, Representative Pierce, and Representative McCrate, thank you very much for having me and honorable members of this committee. I stand before you today to testify in strong support of the proposed budget for the Department of Marine Resources. The MAA, the Maine Aquaculture Association, represents Maine's aquatic farmers and the many infrastructure companies that provide goods and services to our producers. Our farmers annually produce over $100 million in farm gate value, that's point of first sale, and directly employ roughly 700 Maine citizens year round. In addition to that, we added roughly 300 seasonal workers in the summer. We purchase goods and services from over 400 Maine businesses, and our total economic impact is roughly $150 million annually. If you think about us as a fishery, collectively, we are the second most valuable fishery in the state. The Department of Marine Resources and the Joint Standing Committee on Marine Resources both work very hard to protect, manage, and shepherd the valuable resources that form the foundation of this economic engine. In order to operate, our farmers lease roughly 1,700 acres of public waters annually. That's equivalent to roughly 300 average sized potato farms in Aroostook County. We acquire permission to use those few acres by going through a rigorous, transparent, and adjudicatory process that has been developed by the state and your august body over a 45-year period. The leasing process includes 3 public meetings, including a formal public hearing and a review by state and federal authorities to ensure the lease will comply with a series of technical criteria designed to protect the public trust, the environment, and to ensure there are no other significant uses of that area. Once the lease is granted, the farmer must comply with a series of specific lease conditions and a strict set of state and federal environmental regulations. The main aquaculture leasing system, is seen as the gold standard, and many other states and even countries have modeled their aquaculture management programs on the Maine's system. Over the last 20 years, the Maine aquaculture sector has grown slowly and steadily. That growth is largely dictated by the state's ability to accept and process lease applications. Without leases, a farm cannot be started. Without leases, our products cannot be grown. We cannot employ people. We cannot buy the many goods and services we need to operate, and we cannot pay state fees, rents, and taxes. Without leases, we cannot invest in the state and our local communities. Currently, there are over 35 lease applications pending before the DMR. Collectively, those applications represent at least $10 million in investment waiting to be activated and many more millions of dollars in revenue waiting to be generated. At current staffing levels, it will take DMR at least 2 and possibly 3 years to work through this application backlog. Commissioner Kelleher and his staff work tirelessly to professionally manage the aquaculture sector. They do so with very limited resources, and the proposed budget makes a small investment to help them ensure that any growth that occurs in the state's aquaculture sector is responsible and sustainable. That small investment will directly allow farms to be started, Mainers employed, and additional revenues to flow into the state coffers. Maine has a long tradition of producing high quality, healthy seafood. Maine seafood is an iconic part of the Maine brand, and Maine aquaculture products have earned their place as part of that brand. Please help us continue to build that brand and give DMR the investment they need to help us grow the aquaculture sector. I want to thank you for your attention and patience, and more than willing to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Any questions for Mr. Bell from any of our committee members? I am not seeing any, but we appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And looks like the last member of the public we have here to testify is William Kelleher. So I will let him in. And Mr. Kelleher, if you could just say hello when you get here, that'll help us find your square. I hope I didn't send him into cyber purgatory.
Nope.
Oh, great. Welcome.
Hey, I even have a fancy graphic to go along with this.
Very nice.
Background. Thank you. Senator Breen, Senator Marymount, Representative Pierce, Representative McCrate. My name is Bill Kelleher, no relation to the good commissioner. I am CEO of Kennebec River Biosciences located in Richmond, Maine. I stand before you today to testify in strong support of the proposed budget for the Department of Marine Resources. Kennebec Biosciences is an internationally recognized aquatic animal health and biosciences company founded and located in Richmond, Maine. Since 1996, our company has provided comprehensive laboratory services and custom vaccines to the aquaculture sector, government agencies, and research institutions across the globe. Our dedicated professional staff, now at 13, sort of post-pandemic, or at least getting there, works with a diverse set of clients to address their aquatic animal health needs with the goal of providing value to their operations. While much of our revenue comes from outside the state of Maine, we would not be the company we are today without a vibrant aquaculture sector right here in the state. As you can imagine, we are excited about the future and are poised for significant growth as aquaculture continues to grow within Maine and throughout the U.S. Over the last 20 years, the Maine aquaculture sector has grown slowly and steadily. The growth is directly controlled by the state's ability to accept and process lease applications. Without leases, new farms cannot be started, and by extension, I cannot sell my products and services to Maine aquaculture businesses. The current backlog of over 35 lease applications is directly impacting our company's ability to grow and create new jobs. I'm not alone in this problem, and there are many other companies in Maine that rely on the aquaculture sector to purchase their products and goods as services as well. A recent survey conducted by the Maine Aquaculture Association of its members indicated that they purchased goods and services from over 400 companies. Growth in the aquaculture sector directly creates economic activity across the state and throughout the seafood value chain, something I can attest to personally. The proposed budget makes a small investment to help DMR ensure that any growth that occurs in the state's aquaculture sector is both responsible and sustainable. That small investment will directly allow farms to be started, markets for Kennebec River Biosciences products and services to expand, more Mainers to be employed, and additional revenues to flow into state coffers. Please help us continue to build the aquaculture sector and give DMR the resources they need. I thank you for your attention and patience and would be glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. It looks like Representative Thorne has a question for you. Representative Thorne, I can't hear you.
I think I double tapped my mic, Madam Chair. Representative Jim Thorne, District 103. Didn't have an opportunity to introduce myself earlier. Mr. Kelleher, you mentioned a backlog. If you could elaborate a little bit on that, just for me, just for my knowledge, as far as what's causing that backlog and what exactly it is a backlog of, and how it could be alleviated. Thank you.
That's a good question, probably more a Sebastian question, but I'm more in the health realm. But my understanding is, we have a process, and having people who apply for sites and applications, they have to go through that process, and it is quite lengthy and detailed. And so it's just the ability for, I think, the numbers coming through because of the interest in aquaculture and the ability of DMR staff to work through those, those applications and do, frankly, the due diligence that's required, for the process that we have in place.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Kelleher? I am not seeing any. So again, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
I believe that concludes our public hearing for the Marine Resources Department. And I thank everybody for coming. And Really appreciate you being here. Appropriations is going to gather again at 3 p.m. with our colleagues from Inland Fish and Wildlife. And we thank the Marine Resources folks and look forward to your report back after you have your work session. Oh my goodness, it's John Patrick in the building. Nice to see you, sir. So thank you all for joining us, and appropriations will be back at 3 p.m. Good afternoon, folks.
Good afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon, Senator Dill. What is that in your background? Is that the Penobscot? Oh, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
That's the University of Maine circa 1968.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thanks.
All right. Well, Appropriations is back on, and we are joined this afternoon by our colleagues on the Inland Fish and Wildlife Committee. So for those who are just joining us on IFW, if you wouldn't mind going onto your square and renaming yourself, hover over the 3 dots and put your title and your committee. That way folks can tell which committee you're on, since we're doing this together. Appropriations has already introduced ourselves a couple times, well, earlier today. So Senator Dill, I'm going to ask IFW folks to introduce themselves. Would you help lead that for us, please?
I would be happy to, and I will let other folks introduce themselves first, and then I will do last. So I will start with Representative Mason.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Senator Dill. I'm Rick Mason, District 56 for the great people of Lisbon.
And Representative Hepler.
Good afternoon again. I'm Allison Hepler, and I also serve on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. I represent Aroustic, Georgetown, Phippsburg, Woolwich, where I live, and a little piece of Richmond.
Representative Alley.
Yes, I'm trying to get in there.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Robert Alley, District 138, Jonesport, Beal, Addison, Columbia, Columbia Falls, Centerville, Whitneyville, Marshfield, Jonesboro, Cherryfield, and Millbridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Neto.
Good afternoon, Kathy Neto, representing Winslow and a small portion of Benton.
And I see a second Representative Kathy Neto, but it looks more like Representative Terrio. Representative Terrio, can you speak? Guess you can't hear me. All right, then let's see if I have anybody else from the committee. I don't see anybody. Certainly our clerk and analysts are here. Do you want to introduce them to Senator Breen? Linda LaCroix is our clerk, and there she is.
Good afternoon.
And John Clark is our analyst. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon.
Wonderful.
And, yes, and as I mentioned, I'm Senator Jim Dill, and I'm the chair of IFW, and I represent Senate District Number 5, which is Northern Penobscot County.
Thank you.
Yep.
Senator Dill, I took the liberty of renaming Representative Terrio. Did I get that spelling correct?
Yes, I believe it is.
Wonderful. All right, so we're going to hear from Commissioner Camuso in a moment. Welcome, Commissioner. And I just want to encourage folks on IFW to use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen if you have a question or you need my attention. If that doesn't work, feel free to just shout out Madam Chair if you're having a technical problem or you need any help with anything. And before we start, I just wanted to check in, see if anyone has any questions. All right. Welcome, Commissioner Camuso, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Senator Breen, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, Senator Breen, Representative Peirce, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Appropriations and Financial Affairs, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. My name is Judy Camuso. I am the Commissioner of the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, and I am here today to testify in support of the Biennial Bill LD 221. As Governor Mills said, at a time when Maine people are hurting, when small businesses are struggling to keep their doors open, when the ranks of unemployment have swelled, and when we are fighting a deadly virus all around us, we are proposing balanced budgets as required by the Constitution that continue efficiencies, good fiscal management, and curtailments to cover projected revenue shortfalls for all 3 fiscal years. The focus on combating the COVID-19 pandemic by continuing to rebuild the state's public health infrastructure and protecting essential healthcare, education, and life-saving services. They do not change Maine's tax rate, and they maintain the budget stabilization fund. With the future made unpredictable due to the ongoing pandemic, these budgets make good on the promise of government, which is to promote and support the well-being of our people and institutions. The Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife is the lead agency in Maine with the responsibility to preserve, protect, and enhance the inland fisheries and wildlife resources of the state, to encourage the wise use of those resources, and to ensure coordinated planning for future use and preservation of these resources, and to provide for effective management of those resources. The following is a presentation of the department's proposed budget. I will begin on page A333 with the Administrative Services Program. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is comprised of general fund appropriations and other special revenue. This program supports the design, maintenance, and repair of department-owned facilities. The first initiative in this program is found on page A333, reduces the general fund appropriation by $21,739 in FY22 and $22,385 in FY23 for a time reduction in maintenance activities at department-owned facilities. The second new initiative in this program, found on page A333, reduces allocation and other special revenue funds by $7,298 in each year of the biennium to eliminate an account that is no longer in use. ATV Enforcement Fund. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A334 is the ATV Enforcement Fund. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is comprised of other special revenue. This program provides funding for enforcement of ATV laws, ATV education, and the purchase of necessary equipment related to ATV safety and enforcement activities. There are no new initiatives for this program. ATV Safety and Education Program. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A334 is the ATV Safety and Education Program. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is presented of general fund appropriations and other special revenue. This program ensures that persons aged 10 to 16 are in compliance with the law requiring them to complete a training program approved by the department in order to operate such vehicles in the state of Maine. Recreational vehicle education programs are conducted to raise public awareness and promote better understanding of the outdoor recreation safety issues and to encourage better support for recreational vehicle safety and enforcement efforts. Again, there are no new initiatives for this program. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A335 is the Boating Access Site Program. The baseline budget presented shows the budget program is comprised of federal expenditure funds and other special revenue. The Boating Access Site Program was established to increase public access to boat launch sites and to acquire and develop access sites to Maine public waters, and is funded by a portion of the proceeds of the sale of the sportsman's license plates. The first new initiative in this program is found on page A335, increases allocation in federal expenditures by $575,000 in each year of the biennium, and increases allocation in other special revenue by $175,000 in each year of the biennium in capital expenditures line category to purchase and improve land for boat launch facilities throughout the state. The second initiative in this program, found on page A335, increases allocation in the federal expenditures fund by $130,000 in each year of the biennium, and increases allocation of other special revenues by $90,000 in each year of the biennium in the capital expenditures line category for capital improvements and maintenance at publicly owned boat launches and facilities on inland waters. So the first initiative is for new boat launches. Second initiative is for maintenance and upgrades for existing launches. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A336 is the Camp Northwoods program. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is comprised of OSR. The program was established to provide opportunities to youth in the outdoors where they can learn lifelong skills and the importance of sustaining Maine's natural resources. This program is funded through camp application fees and private donations. There are no new initiatives for this program. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A337 is the Endangered Non-Game Operations Program. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is comprised of general fund appropriations, federal expenditure funds, and other special revenue. This program provides management of non-game wildlife and endangered species to maintain and enhance various species of fish and wildlife, as well as the ecosystems on which they depend. Non-game wildlife includes all terrestrial and freshwater species that are not ordinarily collected or taken for sport or profit. The first new initiative in this program, found on page A337, decreases allocation in the federal expenditure fund by $88,941 in fiscal year 22 and $89,482 in fiscal year 23. And decreases allocation in other special revenue funds by $2,389 in fiscal year 22 and $1,068 in fiscal year 23. This represents the endangered non-game species portion of a reallocation of 16 positions within the Bureau of Resource Management to better align funding sources with the actual work that is being performed by these positions. This initiative can also be found on page A341 and page A352 of the budget document. So this initiative is going to show up multiple times. We looked at 16 of our biologists and evaluated the programs that they were charging their time to make sure we were able to maximize the federal dollars and other special revenues where appropriate. So this will come up multiple times, and it's just a kind of reallocating money for various programs. The next new initiative in this program, found on page A337, increases allocation in the federal expenditure funds by $76,369 in fiscal year 22 and $77,005 in fiscal year 23 to reclassify one IFW senior resource biologist position to an IFW resource supervisor position and reallocate the costs from 27% general fund and 73% federal expenditure funds within the Fisheries and Hatcheries program to 34% Fisheries and Hatcheries Fund program general fund, 58% Endangered Non-Game Operations program federal expenditures, and 8% Fisheries and Hatcheries program federal expenditure. This initiative can also be found on page A343 of the budget. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A339 is the Enforcement Operations Program. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is comprised of general fund appropriations, federal expenditure funds, and other special revenue. The Maine Warden Service enforces Title 12, Chapters 901 to 939, enforces all rules promulgated by the Commissioner, and enforces the U.S. Migratory Bird Treaty Act. The Maine Warden Service also enforces Maine boating and recreational vehicle laws, snowmobiles, and ATVs. The Maine Warden Service is by statute responsible for searches for persons presumed lost or drowned in the fields, forests, and inland waters of the state. Game wardens of the Maine Warden Service are uniformed law enforcement officers with full police powers and statewide jurisdiction. The only new initiative in this program, found on page A339, provides a one-time transfer of general fund appropriations of $86,525 in fiscal year 22 and $90,340 in fiscal year 23 from personal services to all other by freezing a vacant game warden position to fund a pilot program to hire contract employees to provide nuisance, sick, injured animal services to the public. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A341 is the Fisheries and Hatcheries Operation Program. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is comprised of general fund appropriations, federal expenditure funds, and other special revenue. The Fisheries and Hatcheries Operations Program works to ensure that all species of inland fish in the state are maintained and perpetuated for their intrinsic, ecological, and economic value. In addition, this program works to ensure that inland fisheries are available for recreational, scientific, and educational use. The first new initiative in this program, found on page A341, reduces the general fund appropriation by $29,540 in FY22 and $29,728 in FY23, and decreases allocation in federal expenditure funds by $78,698 in FY22 and $79,219 in FY23. This represents the Fisheries and Hatcheries portion of the reallocation of 16 positions within the Bureau of Resource Management, previously discussed on my testimony on page 3. This initiative can also be found on page A337 and A352 of the budget document. The second new initiative in this program, found on page A341, provides a one-time allocation in other special revenue funds of $125 in each year of the biennium in the capital expenditures line category to replace capital equipment items that have become unsafe or unreliable. These funds will be used to replace 4 fish stocking trucks, 2 fish stocking truck beds, and 2 sets of stocking tanks. The third new initiative in this program, found on page A342, transfers $2,250 in fiscal year 22 from the general fund appropriation all other line category to the capital expenditures line category and allocates $6,750 in fiscal year 22 in the federal expenditures fund and $36,500 in FY22 in other special revenue funds capital expenditures line category to purchase new capital equipment items. These funds will be used to purchase 1 all-terrain vehicle, 1 boat motor, 1 trailer, and 1 electrofishing boat setup. The fourth new initiative in this program is found on page A342, transfers general fund appropriations of $7,125 in fiscal year 22 and $11,000 in fiscal year 23, and federal expenditure funds allocation of $21,375 in fiscal year 22 and $33,000 in fiscal year 23 from the all other line category to the capital expenditures line category to replace capital equipment that has become unsafe or unreliable. These funds will be used to replace 2 snowmobiles, 1 snowmobile trailer, 1 boat motor, 1 boat trailer, and 1 electrofishing backpack. The fifth new initiative in this program is found on page A342, reduces general fund appropriations by $16,500 in each year of the biennium for a one-time reduction of contractual expenses within this program. The sixth new initiative in this program, found on page A342, provides a one-time allocation of $400,000 in fiscal year 22 in other special revenue for a storage building at the Dry Mills Fish Hatchery for necessary repairs to a water intake at the Emden Fish Hatchery. The seventh new initiative in this program, found on page A342, reduces general fund appropriations by $125,000 in each year of the biennium. These funds were previously used to purchase replacement equipment for the Hatcheries and Operations Program, which will be purchased using other special revenues during this biennium. The eighth new initiative in this program is found on page A343, increases general fund appropriations by $23,276 in FY22 and $12,993 in FY23, and decreases allocation in the Federal Expenditures Fund by $45,859 in FY22 and $75,329 in FY23 to reclassify and reallocate the cost of 1 IFW senior research biologist position to an IFW research supervisor position previously discussed on page 4 of my testimony. This initiative can also be found earlier in the budget document on page A337. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A344 is the Landowner Relations Program. The baseline budget presented shows this budget is comprised of general fund appropriations and other special revenue. The Landowner Relations Program was established to foster good relationships between landowners and outdoor recreationists and to promote a high standard of courtesy, respect, and responsibility by outdoor recreationists in their relation with the landowners. This program is funded through the sale of Outdoor Partners program membership and from a portion, 20% of the sale of the sportsman's license plate. The only new initiative in this program found on page A344 increases allocation and other special revenue funds by $268 in FY22 and $302 in FY23. This initiative reorganizes 2 part-time recreational safety coordinator positions to 1 full-time recreational safety coordinator position. This initiative can also be found further in the budget document on page A352. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A345 is a licensing services program. The baseline budget presented in this budget program is comprised of general fund appropriations, federal fund expenditure, and other special revenue. The licensing services IFW program is responsible for the administration issuance of over 500,000 licenses, stamps, and permits, the registration of 70,000 all-terrain vehicles, 80,000 snowmobiles, and 120,000 boats. The division accomplishes the sale of these license permits and registrations through its work with over 750 sales agents located throughout Maine. The only new initiative in this program found on page A345 reduces general fund appropriation by $6,000 in each year of the biennium due to shifting of online store transaction costs to an alternate fee during the biennium. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A346 is the Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund program. The baseline budget presented shows that this budget program is comprised of other special revenue. The Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund was established to provide funding for projects that would perpetuate Maine's outdoor heritage. The Outdoor Heritage Fund awards grants semi-annually to natural resource organizations for conservation and recreation projects that meet the guidelines stated in the Outdoor Heritage Fund strategic plan. This fund is governed by a board of 7 members and is funded through the sale of special lottery tickets. There are no new initiatives for this program. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A347 is the Office of the Commissioner program. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is comprised of general fund appropriations and other special revenue. The Commissioner's Office is responsible for the administration and management of the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, develops and implements long-range plans for the management and use of the state's fish and wildlife resources and the use of recreational vehicles, and supports services provided by central service agencies in areas common to all divisions, such as the Office of Information Technology and the Natural Resource Service Center. This office is also responsible for the development, coordination, maintenance, and evaluation of the department's comprehensive fish and wildlife program. The first new initiative in this program is found on page A347, provides a general fund appropriation of $150,000 in each year of the biennium to continue the same level of application and end user support provided by the Office of Information Technology. The second new initiative in this program, found on page 347, provides general fund appropriation of $50,000 in each year of the biennium to fund increased fees for the Natural Resources Service Center. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A348 is the Public Information and Education Division. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is comprised of general fund appropriations and other special revenue. The Public Information and Education Division administers programs to increase the public's knowledge and understanding of inland fisheries and wildlife resources through public education, promotion, and dissemination of information. The first new initiative in this program, found on page A348, increases general fund appropriations by $31,263 in FY22 and $32,584 in FY23, and increases allocation and other special revenues by $15,927 in FY22 and $16,596 in FY23 to reorganize one Office Associate 2 position to a Public Relations Specialist position. This initiative also transfers and reallocates the cost of this position from 60% Resource Management General Fund and 40% Resource Management Federal Expenditure Fund to 40% Resource Management Other Special Revenue Funds, 40% Division of Public Information and Education General Fund, and 20% Division of Public Information and Education Other Special Revenue. This initiative can also be found further in the budget document on page A351. The second new initiative in this program, found on page A348, reduces general fund appropriations by $9,303 in each year of the biennium due to a one-time reduction in anticipated out-of-state travel during the biennium. The third new initiative in this program, found on page A348, reduces general fund appropriations by $21,892 in each year of the biennium due to a one-time shift of expenses for printed materials to an alternate funding source for the biennium. The fourth new initiative in this program, found on page A349, reduces general fund appropriations by $4,973 in each year of the biennium to a one-time shifting of expenses for educational materials to an alternate source of funding for the biennium. The fifth new initiative in this program, found on page A349, increases allocation in other special revenue funds by $68,547 in fiscal year 22 and $71,479 in fiscal year 23 to continue one gamekeeper position at the main wildlife park established by financial order. The sixth new initiative in this program, found on page A349, increases allocation in other special revenue funds by $33,564 in each year of the biennium to support the operational needs of the Youth Conservation Education Program. The seventh new initiative in this program, found on page A349, reduces general fund appropriations by $15,536 in FY22 and $16,142 in FY23 to reallocate the cost of one media graphic supervisor position from 100% Division of Public Information and Education Program General Fund to 80% Division of Public Information Education Program General Fund and 20% Resource Management, other special revenues. This initiative can also be found further in the budget document on page A353. The eighth new initiative in this program, found on page A349, reduces general fund appropriations by $9,427 in FY22 and by $9,881 in FY23 and reallocates the cost of one IFW education coordinator position from 70% licensing service program, other special revenue, and 30% Division of Public Information and Education General Fund to 70% licensing service program, other special revenue, 20% Division of Public Information and Education General Fund, and 10% Resource Management, other special revenue funds. This initiative can also be found further in the budget document on page A353. The ninth new initiative in this program, found on page A349, increases general fund appropriations by $3,484 in fiscal year 22 and decreases general fund appropriations by $7,094 in FY23 and increases allocation in other special revenue funds by $8,361 in FY22 and by $2,898 in FY23 to reclassify one public service manager position from range 30 to 32. This initiative also reallocates the cost from 70% general fund and 30% OSR funds within the Division of Information and Education to 60% Division of Information, Public Education, General Funds, 30% Division of Public Information, Education Funds, other special revenue, and 10% Resource Management, other special revenue. This initiative can also be found further in the budget document on page A353. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A351 is the Resource Management Services Program. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is comprised of general fund appropriations, federal expenditure funds, and other special revenue. The Bureau of Resource Management is responsible for the management of the state's inland fisheries and wildlife resources and the development of rules governing effective management of those resources. The Bureau maintains and enhances the state's fish and wildlife resources and habitats through acquisition and habitat improvement, manages wildlife sanctuaries and management areas, coordinates animal damage control functions, and controls the importation and transportation of wildlife species and associated parasites and disease within Maine. The first new initiative in this program, found on page A351, was previously discussed in page 7 of my testimony and page A348 of the budget document, and reorganizes one office associate position to a public relations specialist position. This part of the initiative decreases general fund appropriations by $41,938 in FY22 and $44,034 in FY23, decreases allocation and federal expenditure funds by $28,745 in FY22 and $30,182 in FY23, and increases allocation and other special revenue funds by $31,556 in FY22 and $32,889 in FY23. The second new initiative in this program, found on page A352, was previously discussed on page 6 of my testimony and page A344 of the budget document, and reorganizes 2 part-time recreational safety coordinator positions to 1 full-time recreational safety coordinator position. This part of the initiative increases general fund appropriations by $3,407 in FY22 and $3,807 in FY23, and increases allocation and federal expenditure funds by $9,700 in FY22 and $10,838 in FY23. The third new initiative in this program, found on page A352, reduces general fund appropriations by $50,000 in each year of the biennium for a one-time reduction in funding for predator control efforts. And this will be covered through a different special revenue that we have. The fourth new initiative in this program, on page A352, was previously discussed on pages 3 and 4 of my testimony and pages A337 and A341 of the budget document, and reallocates 16 positions within the Bureau of Resource Management. This part of the initiative decreases general fund appropriations by $186,235 in fiscal year 22 and $190,765 in fiscal year 23, and increases allocation in federal expenditure funds by $356,262 in fiscal year 22 and $361,004 in fiscal year 23. And increases allocation in other special revenue funds by $35,620 in FY22 and $35,470 in fiscal year 23. The fifth new initiative in this program, found on page A352, increases allocation in other special revenue funds by $17,000 in each year of the biennium to support the operational needs of the Black Bear Research Program. The sixth new initiative in this program, found on page A352, increases allocation in federal expenditure funds by $740,000 in each year of the biennium to align expenditure levels with anticipated grant revenue. The seventh new initiative in this program, found on page A353, increases general fund appropriations by $1,422 in FY22 and $478 in FY23, and increases federal expenditure fund allocation by $3,409 in FY22 and $1,149 in FY23 for the reclassification of one secretary associate to an office associate to manager supervisor position. The eighth new initiative in this program, found on page A353, increases general fund appropriations by $12,824 in FY22 and $9,274 in FY23, and increases federal expenditure fund allocations by $30,763 in FY22 and $22,249 in FY23 for the reclassification of one GIS coordinator position to a senior program analyst position. The ninth new initiative in this program, found on page A353, was previously discussed on page 8 of my testimony and page A349 of the budget document, and reallocates the cost of one media graphics supervisor position. This part of the initiative increases allocation and other special revenue funds by $15,974 in FY22 and $16,597 in FY23. The 10th new initiative in this program, found on page A353, was previously discussed on page 8 of my testimony and page A349 of the budget document, and reallocates the cost of one IFW education coordinator position. This part of the initiative increases the allocation and other special revenue funds by $9,693 in FY22 and $10,159 in FY23. The 11th new initiative in this program, found on page A353, was previously discussed on page 8 of my testimony and page A349 of the budget document, reclassifies one public service manager position, one public service manager 2 position from range 30 to 32. This part of the initiative increases allocation and other special revenue funds by $15,921 in fiscal year 22 and $14,174 in FY23. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A354 is the Search and Rescue Program. This baseline budget presented shows the budget program is comprised of general fund appropriations. The Search and Rescue Program was established for the purpose of actively searching for any person who was lost, stranded, or drowned in the woodlands or in the waters of the state. There are no new initiatives for this program. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A355 is the Waterfowl Habitat Acquisition and Management Program. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is comprised of federal expenditure funds and other special revenue. The purpose of Waterfowl Habitat Acquisition and Management Fund program is to acquire waterfowl habitat that supports waterfowl management goals and objectives, and where feasible, improve habitat and species abundance to enhance, restore, or create new opportunities. The only new initiative in this program is found on page A355, increases allocation in the federal expenditure fund by $1,800,000 in each year of the biennium for the purchase of wildlife habitat. The next budget program presented in the budget document on page A356 is the Whitewater Rafting IFW program. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is comprised of other special revenue. The Whitewater Rafting Fund mitigates environmental problems and any adverse effects of competing uses of rivers, promotes safety, education, and enforcement of whitewater rafting laws and department rules. This program dedicates 65% of the revenues from fees and surcharges paid by whitewater rafting outfitters and guides to stay within Fisheries and Wildlife for administration of the whitewater rafting laws and rules. There are no new initiatives with this program. The last budget program presented in the budget document on page A356 is the Whitewater Rafting Fund program. The baseline budget presented shows this budget program is comprised of other special revenue. The Whitewater Rafting Fund program mitigates environmental problems and any adverse effects on competing uses of rivers, promotes safety, education, and enforcement of whitewater rafting laws and department rules. This program returns 10% of the revenue collected from fees and surcharges paid by whitewater rafting outfitters and guides to be credited back to the county in which the river is located. There are no new initiatives in this program. Part GGG on page 45 amends the Fiscal Stability Program to begin in the 2024-2025 biennium. And Part M, found on page 45, authorizes the state controller to transfer $45,000 in fiscal year 2022 and $46,000 in fiscal year 23 from in the Fisheries and Wildlife carrying balance at the general fund account to enforcement operations in the Fisheries and Wildlife Program general fund account for the purchase to replace one aircraft engine in each fiscal year. That concludes my testimony, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner, that was a mouthful.
I'll say.
Well done. Would you like to take a break and get a drink or do anything like that before we continue with questions?
No, I'm fine. Questions, anything?
All righty. Looks like Representative Arata has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for your report. I have a question about two line items that had financial orders back in March of 2020, the waterfowl habitat and the boat launch access sites. There was, and the financial orders, by the way, on the website are missing. Well, there's a link titled, March 27th, March 15th, but when you click on them, it actually is January of 2019 financial order. So there's something messed up electronically. But from what I recall, there was $325,000 in the financial order for the waterfowl habitat and $175,000 for purchase of boat launch and access sites. And from what I remember, that was general fund money. So I see from your budget that you have a lot of federal money for that purpose. And I was wondering if it's possible to pay the general fund back for those financial orders, or is that even feasible?
So I can see Corey, our financial analyst, is on this call, and I'll ask him to unmute himself. And my understanding, Representative, is that we do use federal monies for those programs. And so my guess is that it was moved from a federal account into the capital account, but I'll ask Corey to clarify that. We do have federal money specifically for waterfowl, land acquisition, and boat launches. So Corey, do you know the specifics of those two financial orders?
Yep. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Corey Dion. I'm the financial analyst for Fish and Wildlife. For those financial orders, there was no general fund in them. They were all either dedicated or federal funds.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Representative Fay has a question.
I wasn't quick enough with my unmute. It's nice to see you, Commissioner Camuso, and it's nice to see my former IFW committee colleagues. I actually have a question about the boat launches, the boat launch facilities as well. Is there a specific work plan for specific sites, both in terms of maintenance and upgrade, and also for new purchases?
Sure, absolutely, Representative. Thank you for
and you can get that to me for the work session if that works. That's fine.
I can get it for the work session. I can tell you, I have an overview of the big level.
Oh, great.
So here are a few of the bigger projects that will go to 29 or 20, I mean to fiscal year 22 or 23. So the Togus Pond family fishing area in Augusta, construction started the past couple weeks. We expect it to be completed later this summer, early fall. This is a new fully ADA facility, ADA accessible facility that will include small trailered launch onto Togus Pond, 2 hand carries, and a casting platform that will allow access to both Togus and Lower Togus. On Anabassacock Lake in Winthrop, engineering has been completed and we are now in the permitting phase. We expect to have a project out for bid late summer for the fall or early spring construction. This will be also an ADA compliant trailered launch on water we've been working to get formal public access since the early 90s. The third big project is on Big Indian Pond in St. Albans. Engineering is also in progress for that project. We expect to do permitting this summer and get the project out to bid this fall, and construction is likely spring 2022. This is a full reconstruction of the existing trailered launch, and we'll bring that up to ADA standards. So those are a couple. We've got, I think, several other projects that I can give you more detail if you want, but those are the big projects that we have planned for the next 2 years.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
I'm really pleased to hear that the new boat launches are being designed as with ADA in mind. Is that a requirement for the use of any federal funds for this, or is that something the department has done on its own?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a priority for our agency. And I'm not 100% positive it's a requirement for federal funds or not, but certainly encouraged. But I could look, I could find out for sure if it's a federal requirement, but it is absolutely within our goals and objectives.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions for Commissioner Camuso? I am not seeing any at the moment. We do have a member of the public who's here to offer some public testimony. He might be a familiar face to some of us. He is to me, Don Kleiner. So I'm going to admit Mr. Kleiner into the panel, and Mr. Kleiner, if you could just say hello when you arrive, that'll help us find your square in our screens.
There, I'm in.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Senator Breen, Representative Pierce, Senator Dill, who I can't find on my screen at this moment, and Representative Landry, distinguished members of both committees. My name is Don Kleiner. I live in Union, also known as the center of the universe. I represent the Maine Professional Guides Association, roughly 1,000 small businesses scattered around the state. And we got the range. I got the crustiest old bear guide and a woman doing yoga paddleboard trips for women only. There's no diversity in my membership. A few key points about this. I won't belabor it. I admire you for being able to sit through Commissioner Camuso going through all that line by line. And it always astounds me that we can talk about movements of money as small as $1,000 in real terms when you've got other work to do. First is one thing I would remark that I wish you would all keep an eye on as you pursue natural resources. People have gotten out in droves in the last year. It's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. The thing that it has brought into clear focus, and I think Representative Fay is sort of onto this, we've got to begin to ramp up our maintenance and stewardship of these places that we've set aside or developed or built, and just keep that in the back of your mind that is a real need that I see going forward. I don't have solutions right today in front of me, but know that I see that as a problem we collectively share. Speaking more directly to the budget, there are some things that I like here that I'd like you to just know about. I won't read my testimony. I'll give you the 30-second version. Landowner relations is critical. Wildlife of the state belongs to all of us, but it lives on someone's land. At some level, we are their guests. And certainly when we recreate on that land, we are their guests. So that relationship requires considerable input and fostering and maintenance. I'm delighted to see the expanded levels of funding in this budget for that effort. Forgive me here, I've kind of lost my place for a moment. The other thing is that we need to make an effort to educate the people of our state about the resources that we all collectively own and how important they are and how they work and what management looks like. And I think that the commissioner and the governor have made a tremendous stride here in terms of making that effort and helping people begin to understand what that looks like and how valuable of a resource it is. And the final thing I would bring up, and this is with my small business hat on. I've been a registered Maine guide for a very long time, been in business for 35 years. I am delighted to see the level of marketing effort now applied on behalf of the department and the Office of Tourism to help Maine guides. This has been a terrible time to run a small business. I think a number of you run small businesses and you know all about the challenges. I won't go into detail. But to see the people that we align ourselves with and think of as our natural allies stepping up to help us fill our slots and our beds has been incredibly gratifying in this difficult time. With that, I think I've kept enough of your afternoon. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Kleiner. We appreciate you being patient and hanging in there for the testimony and joining us today. Are there any questions for Mr. Kleiner from the committees?
Wow.
You've stunned us.
I love perfect understanding. Thank you, Senator. A delight to see you.
Thank you. You too. So I don't think we have anything else in the public hearing. I always like to check with my wonderful analyst, Maureen Dawson, and my co-chair, Representative Peirce, make sure that we have fulfilled all of our responsibilities before we send our friends from IFW on their way. Representative Peirce?
I feel like we've done everything. I don't see any other attendees waiting to testify, and so
Okay.
looks good to me.
Maureen?
I do not either, so I think you're good to go.
All right. We will say so long to the IFW folks. Thank you so much for coming and joining us, and thank you, Commissioner.
One really fast. So Mr. Kleiner did speak, correct?
Correct, yes.
I just want to make sure I didn't forget.
And appropriations, folks, stay tuned. We might be doing a work session later this afternoon. And I'll just give you a little preview of Friday, tomorrow. We have 10 o'clock public hearing on environment and natural resources. And then at 1 o'clock, we have a public hearing on with our colleagues from Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry. And that will bring us to the end of our hearings on the biennial budget proposal. So that will be something to celebrate. We will gather, we might be gathering in a few, sometime soon for a work session, but we will look for a link in your email. Don't go far. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.